We're almost at the end of 2021, so now's a good time to look back at some of the news stories we've discussed here on BBC News Review. Hello, I'm Rob, and joining me to look back on 2021 is Roy. Hello, Roy.
Hello, Rob, and hello, everybody. Yes, absolutely, it's been an incredibly busy year, but also it's been a very, very difficult year for many families and people around the planet, especially with the COVID pandemic. But 2022, it's almost here, so let's hope that next year will be a much, much better year for many people out there.
Yeah, let's hope so. But as you say, this year we discussed things such as the COVID pandemic, we've discussed royal news, we've talked about the sport and the Olympics, we've talked about political stories as well, and we've talked about drinking wine in space, haven't we?
Yes, we have. I've never tried it, but it does sound intriguing.
Apparently it tastes better if you do it up in space, but who knows? Okay, well, anyway, we've picked three of our most popular stories from this year, and we're starting with some royal news.
Yes, so this one was about an interview with Oprah Winfrey, and Meghan Markle spoke about her life with the British royal family and how she found it very difficult.
Now, Neil and Catherine talked about this and brought us the word bombshell. Let's have a look at what they said.
And we're now with Sky News here in the UK. The headline, Meghan and Harry on Oprah. All the key quotes from bombshell interview as couple discuss leaving royal life.
Bombshell describes a shocking event or piece of news.
Yes, it's all one word, BOMBSHELL. Bombshell. It's a military term. Neil, you know what a bomb is, don't you?
Yes, a bomb is a device that explodes in order to destroy things like buildings or military hardware, those type of things.
Yes, and a bombshell, excuse me, is the casing around the bomb. So bomb or bombshell. And yes, a bombshell will destroy everything. It's a shocking, life-changing, momentous event. Nothing will be the same after a bombshell, and that's the idea behind the word in this context. A bombshell interview is something that really shocks, potentially very damaging, devastating even. So a bombshell is something really, really serious.
And we're talking about figurative damage here. We're not saying that Harry and Meghan actually used a weapon of any kind.
No, not unless you count words as a weapon. Yeah, there's no actual weaponry involved here.
Yeah. In this example, bombshell is an adjective, so we're talking about a bombshell interview. We can say a bombshell moment, but it's also often used as a noun, and with the expression to drop a bombshell.
Yes, to drop a bombshell. If you drop a bombshell, you give very important unexpected news. So your news, if you drop a bombshell, you're giving shocking and surprising news at the same time. So for example, if your family have always expected you maybe to go to university, you've always said you're going to go to university, and then the day before you're supposed to go to university, you say, actually, I'm not going. That would be, you would be dropping a bombshell, or you'd be giving some bombshell news.
Yeah, and the degree to which this news is shocking is, of course, relative. You know, it might be very important to an individual, but not important on an international scale.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you don't have to be leaving a royal family to drop a bombshell. It's literally what's important to you and the person that you're giving this news to.
Okay, well, let's get a summary.
So that was the word bombshell.
Yes, and if you want to test yourself on that piece of vocabulary or any of the other vocabulary we talk about today, all you need to do is head to our website, bbclearningenglish.com, to take a quiz.
Okay, and you can learn more about that story about Meghan and Harry and learn more vocabulary as well. So how can people do that, Roy?
All you need to do is click the link in the description.
Just down below. Next, no surprises, but we've been talking about climate change this year, and we had a story back in August that we talked about. What was it exactly, Roy?
Okay, so this story was called Climate Crisis, Last Chance for Humanity. And it was basically the fact that human activity is causing unprecedented and irreversible changes to the planet, according to a UN report.
And Catherine and Tom talked about this and brought us the phrase, a wake-up call. Let's have a look at what they said.
We're here with the BBC News and the headline, Stark Warning Over Climate Change, a wake-up call.
A wake-up call. A shocking event which can cause changes in behaviour or attitude. Catherine, over to you.
Yes, now we start with a, then the second word wake, W-A-K-E. Third word is up, UK, but those two words wake and up are joined with a hyphen when you write them. And the final word is call, C-A-L-L, so you have a wake-up call. Now, Tom, I'm sure you've had a wake-up call in a hotel, haven't you, at some point in your life?
I have, yeah. A wake-up call in a hotel is when someone gives you a phone call to wake you up or stop you from sleeping.
Yes, and it's a bit of a shock, isn't it, when you wake up in a strange bed with the phone ringing and you're like, where am I? What's happening? It sort of makes you jump a bit, doesn't it?
It's alarming, yeah, and you could say it causes alarm, yeah.
Yes, which is why we call it an alarm call sometimes. So that's the kind of idea of a wake-up call originally. Now, in this context, we're not talking about hotels and making you wake up in the morning, but we are talking about a shock, something that kind of jolts you into reality and makes you pay attention and take action.
Okay, so we're talking about wake-up call again in this serious context of climate change. Could you give us an example of when we can use wake-up call in a more everyday context?
Yes, well, if you think about those lazy students, Tom, I'm sure you weren't one, but, you know, there's always that time at university when you get fed up of working really hard and the grades slip a bit. And
yeah, I heard about that time.
Yes.
It never happened to me, obviously.
I'm sure. And then one day you get a grade which is really quite low. It's a D, maybe an E even, and you go, oh no, right, party time's over. I'm going to have to start working because if I don't, I'm going to fail this course. So that bad grade, that D or that E was a wake-up call because it makes you get back to reality, work harder. So a serious warning that makes you change your behaviour is a wake-up call.
So low grades are a wake-up call to lazy students. And of course, anyone watching this is taking ownership of their education and will not need that wake-up call. Great. Let's have our summary slide, please.
So that was a wake-up call. And you can watch that full report and learn more vocabulary about that subject by going somewhere. But where do people go, Roy?
All you need to do is click the link in the description below.
Down below. Thank you. Next, we had some big news in September. What was it, Roy?
Yes, we had a story that ABBA, the pop superstars of the 1970s, were planning a new album and a digital tour.
Yeah, exciting news. Well, for ABBA fans at least. And you and Neil discussed this and brought us the phrase damp squib. So let's hear what you said.
Okay, our next headline comes from the UK, from The Telegraph, and it reads, ABBA, I Still Have Faith in You review. Comeback single is a bit of a damp squib.
Damp squib. Something less impressive than expected.
Yeah, so this is a very British expression, and it's two words. The first word is damp, D-A-M-P. The second word is squib, spelled S-Q-U-I-B. Very important that B there. And what it means, it describes something. It's a noun phrase, and it describes something that is, it's less than it was expected. So you had high expectations, and it didn't reach those expectations.
Yeah, now this is a bit of a strange expression because most people will understand the first part, damp, meaning slightly wet, and we can see how that can have a sort of negative meaning. But squib, what is a squib, Roy?
In the past, a squib was used to refer to a small firework. So this is going to give an idea. So you're right, that damp word, which is obviously still in use, it means wet. And the firework, if a firework is wet, it doesn't really work. Fireworks are best when they're dry. So this is what many people believe is the origin of this expression, just a wet firework that didn't go off.
Yeah, and as we know, fireworks are exciting. There's some expectation around how they're going to make you feel. You're going to be excited and full of joy. If it's damp, that excitement is gone. And that's the key to this meaning.
It is. So, and we use it quite commonly, as I say, in British English informally, to say something is a disappointment. So maybe you go to a restaurant and the food isn't very good, and you say, that restaurant was a bit of a damp squib. Or a party, a terrible, terrible party. Can you think of an example of a damp squib?
Well, Roy, I know, I don't want to upset you here because I know you organised it, but last year's Learning English Christmas party, well, the Christmas party is usually quite good fun, but last year, because we couldn't get together because of COVID, we had to do it virtually, and I'm afraid to say it was a damp squib, Roy.
Yeah, I agree. It was a bit of a letdown, not as good as expectations, but we made the best of a bad situation. But you can say, yeah, it was a bit of a damp squib because the year before everybody was together, and hopefully, again, I have another opportunity this year. So hopefully, my reputation this time will remain intact.
Ah, nice use of the word from that previous headline. One other thing to point out about this expression, damp squib, a lot of people get confused because the word squib is not used in modern English very often, and they think it's a squid. What's a squid, Roy?
Okay, so yeah, this is absolutely true. Both native speakers of English and non-native speakers regularly get this wrong. They say damp squid. A squid is an animal that lives under the water, and it's kind of like an octopus. And it makes sense because a squid would be damp, but that's not the expression. We say damp squib with a B.
Okay, let's get a summary.
Damp squib, a great phrase, but hopefully one that doesn't describe your year or indeed this programme. Now, Roy, could you recap some of the vocabulary that we've heard about today, please?
Of course I can. We had bombshell, describes a shocking event or piece of news. We had a wake-up call, a shocking event which can cause changes in behaviour or attitude. And we had damp squib, something less impressive than expected.
Thank you. And a reminder that you can test yourself on the vocabulary you've heard today on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. Well, we're almost out of time, but from the whole of the News Review team, that's me and Neil and Catherine and Tom, and of course you, Roy, we want to wish you a very happy new year. And of course, we'll be back as usual every week in 2022. So from me, happy new year.
Happy New Year, everybody.